planning. In part 1 of financial planning, we have discussed on what is financial planning, how do we set savings goal, or how do we make sure to develop a savings goal, and we've also seen different types of budget along with the 50-30-20 rule, which is the budgeting rule. And in part 2, we have seen the role of insurance, right, in financial planning, of what are the different types of insurances, how does insurance protect us from unexpected situations. And in part 3 of financial planning, we would discuss on the simple interest and compound interest, along with inflation versus deflation, of what is inflation, what are the types of deflation and types of inflation, what is deflation, and we'll understand of why we are covering this in financial planning, right? Let's start with simple interest. Now, when we talk about simple interest is always, right, always calculated only on the principal amount, which means the original amount that you have deposited, or you have, made an investment with, right? So this interest does not compound, which means it will not earn interest on interest. So if I have deposited 10,000 rupees today or invested 10,000 rupees today, I would earn interest only on the 10,000 rupees for how many ever years I keep my investment or deposits for, right? So let's understand of how do we calculate simple interest. We have a very simple formula, which is PTR by 100, nothing but your principal, time and rate, divide that by the 100, and you would get your interest, of how much you will get your interest as. So when we know already of how simple this can be, we can easily calculate and predict, right, of how much interest you will earn. But when we talk about simple interest, it wouldn't help us in long term, right? Because we would want our money to grow with time. We would not want it to grow with the same amount every year, right? So for long term investments, we might, our returns would be very less if we get a simple interest on our investments. Let's solve a simple problem. Suppose you have 15,000 rupees which you have invested at a 8% per annum, and for 3 years. Calculate the earned and the total amount at the end of 3 years. Okay, so let's understand of how much interest would you receive. Your principal is 15,000. Rate is 8% or 0.08, which is nothing but 8% in decimals. And T is 3 years, right? So the interest that you would earn will be 15,000 multiplied by the rate, which is 0.08, multiplied by the tenure, that is the time, which is 3 years. So when you do that, you will get, or you will receive a interest of 3,600 rupees for the next 3 years, which means for after 3 years in your bank account, you would have not 15,000, but you would have 15,000 plus the interest that is accumulated over the 3 years, which is 3,600. That would sum up to 18,600 rupees in your investment. Alright, so now after 3 years, your investment would be 18,600 rupees, in which 3,600 is your interest and 15,000 is your principal amount. So this is how we calculate simple interest. Now let's understand about compound interest. Now when we talk about compound interest, it is calculated both on the principal and the interest that you have earned over previous period of time, correct? Now when we talk about compound interest, it is also called interest on interest, okay, which means, now let's say for example, I've invested 10,000 rupees at 3% compound interest, alright, which is annually compounded. So at the end of first year, I would have 10,300 rupees, correct? In simple interest, what happens, even for second year, I would earn an interest on 10,000 rupees only. But in compound interest, I will earn an interest on 10,300, Okay, which means it is taken into consideration the accumulated interest of the year 1. So in year 2 I will calculate, or the interest is calculated on 10,300 at 3% rather than 10,000 rupees. Okay, so now here what's happening, because we are earning interest on interest, when you leave your money for a longer period of time, you will see how compound interest will do the magic, right? Your money will grow much faster when compared to your simple interest. Okay, so this makes it's highly effective, especially for long term investments. And let's understand of how we calculate compound interest. Now, the example says you invest 20,000 rupees at a rate of 6% per annum, compounded annually. Okay, this is something that you have to be careful of. It could be compounded monthly, compounded quarterly, semi-quarterly, semi-yearly, annually, right? And this is for 3 years. Calculate the compound interest and at the end of 3 years. Okay, so let's calculate this. The formula is very simple. A means A is equal to what? A is equal to the total amount that you would have at the end of a particular given time period. P is nothing but your principal multiplied by 1 plus R and divide that by the n. Now we'll understand what n will be, to the power of n into times. Now principal is 20,000. Okay, it's given in the question. Rate is 6% given in the question, 6% or 0.60 in decimals. N is equal to 1. Now what is n? That is when this is coming into picture, which is compounded annually. Okay, if it was compounded quarterly, okay, how many quarters are there in a year? There are 4 quarters, right? So you will your n, that is number of years, will be 4 in that case, because this is annually, which is once. Okay, compounding is happening only once in a year. Okay, so that would be 1. So here in our question, n will be 1 and t is for the tenure, which is 3 years. Alright, so 20,000 into 1 plus 0.06 divided by n, which is the number of years it's been compounded or how often it's compounded, right? So if here it was quarterly, then I would divide this by 4. Okay, to the power of 1 into 3. N is 1 here, t is 3. So I would just put all the numbers here and you will calculate that. So that will give you a total amount of 23,820 at the end of 3 years. Okay, that's the total amount. Okay, that's not my interest, that is my total amount. That is how much my investment will be as a whole. Now out of this, how much is my interest that I have earned? I will reduce the principal amount. Okay, now if you see here in this formula as well, minus P, which means reduce your principal amount. How much is my principal amount here? It is 20,000 rupees. So out of 23,820, I will reduce my principal amount, which is 20,000, and I will get my interest. 3,820 is the interest that I have earned over the 3 years. Alright, I hope you are clear with how the calculations are going, and I'm also hoping that you've understood how do we calculate n here. Alright, so this is something that you have to be careful of when it comes to compound interest. You'll have to read the question very carefully, understand of how often it is being compounded, and depending on that your number of times will change. Alright, let's move ahead. This is another question. You can pause the video here, read the question, try solving it by yourself and then come back to check your answer. Alright, here the question is saying Amit invests rupees 1 lakh in a fixed deposit that offers a compound interest of 8% per annum, compounded quarterly. Okay, this is something that I have already explained to you so that you can start working on it if you have not yet started working on it. And he plans to leave the money for 3 years. Okay, and you have to calculate how much interest will be earned after a year and what is the total amount that will be with Amit after the 3 years of tenure. Now let's calculate this and also check if you have already got this right. A means what? The future amount, which is nothing but the total value including the interest, right? P means the principal investment, correct, which is 1 lakh rupees in the given case, all right? And then the annual interest rate. The question itself will give all of this information. My interest rate is 8%, which is nothing but 0.08 in decimals. N means the number of times interest is being compounded. Okay, here in the question, if you read carefully, it is compounded quarterly. Okay, quarterly means 4 times. Okay, that means in my case, in this question, N would be equal to 4. And for how long is the money being invested? It is invested for 3 years. Alright, so my T will be equal to 3 years. That will be 3. Let's calculate the compound interest. Now this is the formula. Just substitute the numbers into the formula. P is 1 lakh rupees. So 1 lakh multiplied by 1 plus 0.08, which is nothing but my interest rate. Divide that by the number of times it is being compounded, which is 4 times to the power of 4 into 3, which would be 12. So at the end of 3 years, you would have around 1,26,824 rupees. Okay, so 1 lakh will become 1,26,000 within the span of 3 years. Alright, this is my total amount. This is the future value. This is my total amount, which also includes my interest. Now let's calculate how much interest have I earned. So what do? From the total amount, we will only reduce our principal. Correct? So 1,26,000 is my investment, is my total amount, and 1 lakh was my investment. So what will I do? From the total amount that I have, I will reduce my principal amount. That will give me the interest that I have earned, which is 26,824. Alright, I hope you've got this correct. If you had not got this correct, I hope you've understood how do we calculate this. Right? Let's move ahead. Let's understand the difference between the simple interest and compound interest. When we talk about definition, of course, we know that simple interest is calculated only and only on the principal. But in case of compound interest, it is both on interest and accumulated interest. Now this grows very slowly, and here there is, we would see a higher growth when compared to simple interest. And simple interest is more suitable for short-term investments. Okay, if you are investing for, let's say, 6 months, that is, simple interest is suitable in such short durations. But for longer period of time, simple interest will not help our money grow. So compound interest is much preferred when it comes to long-term loans or investments. All right. Now let's understand inflation. Now inflation is a situation wherein the prices of goods and services will increase, leading to decrease in purchasing power. Now what does this mean? Let's say, for example, your pocket money is 1,000 rupees. Okay, it was 1,000 last year also, it is 1,000 this year also. Your money, your income is not changed, alright? But the prices of goods and services have increased. Okay, your income is the same. You're receiving 1,000 rupees last year also, this year also you're receiving 1,000 rupees itself. Now with that 1,000 rupees, let's say, you were able to buy 10 units of goods. Okay, let's break it down to, you were able to buy, let's say, 10 t-shirts, or you were able to buy 2 school bags. Yeah, school bags seems more relatable. So with 1,000 rupees, you were able to buy 2 school bags. Okay, that because that was the price. This year, because of the prices are increasing, of goods and services, this year you are able to purchase only 1 unit, which means you're able to purchase only 1 school bag. Okay, your price of bag is increased, your purchasing power will also decrease. So when the prices are increasing, how much we are able to buy, okay, that will get affected. Our income is the same, but how much are you able to buy from it? When the prices were low, you could buy 2 units of something, but now With increase in prices, you're able to buy only one unit. Okay, so that is what it means when we say when there's inflation, our purchasing power will decrease. I had the power of buying 2 units, but my power decreased to 1 unit. Okay, so that is called decrease in purchasing power. And what's the impact? It will reduce the value for money, which means you can buy less with the same amount. So with the same amount that was 1000 and 1000, now you're able to buy less, which means the value of money is reduced. Correct? While money had more value and you could buy 2 units, now it's reduced to just 1 unit. With the same amount of money, because of the increase in prices, how much unit are you able to buy will also be affected, and that will reduce. Now, why is it important for us to learn this from a financial planning perspective? Now, financial planning is not meant only for short-term goal of what I want to do in next 6 months, right? When we talk about financial planning, it is also planning for retirement, which is very long term, right? If you are like, let's say, 13-year-old, 15-year-old, by the time you start earning, let's say you are 20 years old, right? So when we include financial planning is not just for 6 months, 1 year, or 2 year. It is also planning for your retirement. Okay, so that's how long term we plan when we talk about financial planning, which is almost like, let's say, 30, 40 years down the line. So we are planning that much ahead. So when we are planning for a long period of time, and when we know that the prices of goods and services are increasing, okay, so I will always have to make sure that I have an extra margin that I am saving, so that tomorrow if the prices of goods and services increase, I will have enough savings that I've made towards inflation, right? Now, for example, if I am saving for, let's say, to buy a new laptop, all right, and I am saving just the price. The laptop is costing me, let's say, 15,000 today. Okay, the price of laptop is 15,000 today. But if I want to save money and I want to purchase the same laptop the next year, the price can be increased, or it can go up to, let's say, 16,000 or 20,000. Okay, but if I do not consider inflation, what will happen after 1 year? I would still not be able to afford the laptop because the laptop price is increased. Okay, that happened because I did not take into consideration the inflation. Okay, so what happens when we don't plan accordingly or keep in mind the inflation factor? Inflation will outpace, that means that will be more, inflation rate will be more than our savings or investment. Okay, so that is why we have to make sure to preserve our purchasing power, right? So that we can still afford buying what we want, the same number of units of what we want. You will keep in mind that particular inflation factor and then plan for your future. And of course, to set your goal again with the same example, if you are planning to buy a laptop and everything, you will make sure that when you're setting a goal, and especially if it's a long term goal, you will keep in mind the factor of inflation. Okay, if not, the inflation will be less, the money that you have will be lower, and you wouldn't be able to uh, afford as many units as you could have if you had considered the inflation factor. Now let's understand the different types of inflation we have. The first type of inflation is a hyperinflation, in which the prices will rapidly grow. Okay, almost around 50% per month. 50%, it will just keep on increasing. If a product is costing me 100 rupees today, in hyperinflation, what will happen? The price of that, it will increase from 100 to 150 very soon. Okay, direct 50% can be increased. All right, so that is called your hyperinflation, and this can collapse an entire monetary system also. If prices are increasing at this pace, that is at 50 percentage per month, right? Imagine the cost of the products and everything, and we literally cannot afford anything because the prices are so high. It's increasing around 50 percentage per month, so we wouldn't be able to afford, or our value for money will also decrease, the purchasing power will also decrease drastically, right? So that is about your hyperinflation. And if we have to talk about some real time examples, you can read about the situation of Zimbabwe in the 2000s and after post World War One in Germany, where money was literally worthless. So this is something about hyperinflation. Recent examples could also be Pakistan, wherein even the smallest of the goods were costing very high, and people couldn't afford that, right? So that is a situation of hyperinflation. Now, when we talk about stagflation is when there is high inflation, but there's also, this will coincide with the slow economic growth and high unemployment. So basically, in this type of inflation, it features that the prices are in a stagnant phase. Like it becomes very slow. It is stagnant. It's not moving, right? It's just in that uh, place and it's not moving. It's very slow. The economic growth will become very slow in this type of inflation, which will lead to high unemployment, right? An example could be 1970s oil crisis, which caused the cost push inflation. Now push inflation is where the prices of all the goods and services are increasing. So of course the production cost will increase, the final cost will increase, and all of the prices, when they're increasing and people are not able to afford, the economy slows down, right? So managing stagflation involves diversifying your investments to reduce the economic risk. Now, you wouldn't want, such economic situations to affect your investments. So, what's the best thing to do? You would diversify your investments. And now let's understand what deflation is. This is the exact opposite of inflation. In inflation, the prices were increasing. In deflation, the price levels will come down. Okay. Now, as a customer, we might feel, okay, the prices are coming down. It's a good thing, right? My purchasing power will increase. Correct. Now, if one good was costing 100 rupees today and I could afford just buying one unit, and the price falls to 50 rupees, with 100 rupees I can buy two units of that good, which means now I am able to purchase more. Correct. So that is deflation. When there's a decrease in the prices of goods and services, it will increase the purchasing power of our money. Now, what is the impact of this? The impact is, it can, of course, it will again reduce the customer spending, which will, uh, you know, we will always be in this situation wherein we would want more price drops, right? We would wait for the the price to drop more. So we will delay our purchase, right? We wouldn't spend it right now. We would be in the expectation that the prices will fall even more. Okay, from 100 to it's come to 75. Let's wait for some time. It will come to 50 also. When it will come to 50, then I will spend. Okay, so we delay our purchases. So what happens when we are delaying our purchases? The economic growth will be less because we are not spending our money, right? So again, deflation is also not good, right? Because when the prices are falling, businesses may make very less money, and businesses again have, they contribute too much towards the economy, right? When they are not having enough money, then they will, have to take out people from their jobs. People will lose jobs and everything will slow down. Correct. So if inflation is not good, because the price levels are increasing, deflation is also not good because that will lead to a very slow growth of the economy. All right. Now let's understand what are the causes of deflation. What causes deflation? Number one is overproduction. Now what happens is, if the companies are producing too much, right? When there is too many products available of the same kind, the prices will automatically fall. Correct. Now if there's too much supply, which means your uh, price of that particular product will fall. Now for example, if I have a business and I know that customers are liking the product that I'm producing, right? It could be, let's say I'm producing some kind of a fun pen, okay? and I know that the customers are liking it. Now, just because I have a good response towards my product and I overproduce it, right? I am producing it too much that's not even needed, right? When there is so much supply of that pen, the price will have to fall because it's already available in the market, it's available everywhere. Now, while this might sound good that the prices will fall, it's bad for me as a business, correct? Now that it's come down, the prices have fallen down, where as a business I was making good profit, now I would not be able to make profits because the price of my product has come down, right? So overproduction is one of the reasons. And then decreased consumer demand. Okay, sometimes what happens is that people will stop spending. Okay, they would not want to spend anymore. So when the consumers are not demanding goods, there is no point that the businesses produce, right? When a consumer is not ready to spend, then there's no point in businesses producing goods and then selling it into the market, because any which ways there's no consumer demand because they are holding back their money, correct? When consumers hold back their money, businesses will lower the price, correct? Because people are not spending, they also want income. So what businesses will do, they will try to reduce the price of the product and then try to sell it to the customers at a lower rate. Now this can also lead to more trouble to the businesses because of lower prices, less consumer demand, and you are still lowering the prices, which is again one of the causes of deflation, wherein the prices can come down. And then now let's understand financial planning during deflation. What is it that you have to do? Now, one thing is you can hold back your cash, correct? Now, when we hold our cash, that means we are expecting the price drops, correct? Which will allow you to buy more. Okay, I would wait that the prices will fall even more. If it's fallen from 100 to 75, I would wait to for it to fall more, correct? It could be 60 or 50, so I hold back my cash. So that's one thing. And then you can invest in government bonds because they are the safest option. Okay, so if you are investing 1 lakh rupees 10,000 rupees in cash during a deflation period, the prices of things around you going down, so you will want this 10,000 rupees with you itself, correct? You would want to hold this 10,000 rupees with you so that you can buy more in the future. Okay, and when we talk about investing in government bond is because bonds are the safest option which will give you fixed return. Okay, when the economy is slowed down, it's very slow, it's not moving, or there's no growth that's seen in the economy, investing in bonds is one of the safest options because you will for sure receive a fixed return, right? So these are the few things that can be done during deflation. Now let's understand the difference between inflation and deflation. During deflation, what happens? Prices will rise, making money worthless because our purchasing power is reduced. And in deflation, the prices will fall, correct? Making money more valuable, but the economy will slow down. All right. Now, how do we manage inflation? It's the central banks who manages the inflations, that is either through interest rates. We have discussed this in the supply of money, right? Of how RBI takes control over supplying of money. Okay, so central banks can increase the interest rates to fight or manage inflation, and to fight deflation, they can lower the interest rate so that we spend more. Alright, this is something that we have done in the supply of money. So you can go back to the concept if you do not remember and watch the video again of how interest rates and again OMOs, that is open market operations, all of these are the measures or the tools or policies that are undertaken by the RBI so that they can control inflation and also deflation. Okay, now let's solve a problem. Now Ravi's monthly expense for 2024 is 30,000. Inflation rate for 2025 is projected at 6%. Okay, what are you supposed to do? You have to estimate the monthly income considering the inflation factor. Right now he is spending 30,000. We have to calculate how much will he spend keeping in mind the inflation factor? Okay, it's very simple. How do we calculate? We will calculate. They've given the monthly income, which is 30,000. Inflation is 6%. How do we calculate? Current expense multiplied by 1 plus the inflation rate. Alright. Now, why do we do this 1 plus? If you have seen, even in compound interest, we have this 1 plus factor. That is because we are calculating the total income. Right. I just don't want to know by how much I will do. Rather, I want to know the total amount. That is when we take the 1 plus factor. Okay, so here my current expense is 30,000. What, if what anybody would do is take 30,000, multiply it with 6%, correct? And then you would get around 1,800 rupees. And then you would add that back to the original money, that's the original expense, 30,000. Now that's one way of doing it. Rather than doing it like that, we take the 1 plus factor. Okay, so when we do that, we will directly get the total amount that we are looking for. Okay, so current expense multiplied by 1 plus the inflation rate, which is 30,000 multiplied by 1 plus 0.06, which is my inflation rate, which will give me 31,800. This means what? In 2024, Ravi was spending 30,000, but in 2025, his monthly income will be 31,800. Okay, this is because the prices of goods and services are increasing. Alright, so this is how we will calculate the value of inflation rate, considering the inflation factor with the help of inflation rate. Now let's solve one more problem. Arun and Tarun each invest 25,000. Okay, Arun invests 25,000 at a simple interest rate or at 6.5% for 2 years. Okay, Tarun invests the same 25,000 at a rate of 6.5%, same interest rate, but his interest is compounded monthly. Okay, so this is compounded monthly. So we have done three types of compounding. One is annually, and then we have done quarterly, and this is monthly. Alright, monthly for 2 more years. Calculate how much interest is earned by both Arun and Tarun and what's the total amount. Okay, if you know how to calculate this, pause the video here, calculate the amount and get back to check if you've done it right. Alright, now let's move to the solution. Let's do Arun's investment first. What's the principal amount? 25,000. Interest rate 6.5%. Time 2 years. What's the formula? It's PTR by 100 or PRT if you are taking this into decimals, or you can just convert this and divide this by 100. So your interest will be 3,250. That is 25,000 into 6.5% divided by 100 into 2 years. Alright, so that will give you the simple interest of 3,250. Now I want to know what's the total amount. So what will I do? I will add my initial investment to this interest, which is 25,000. So 3,250 plus 25,000, that will give me 28,250. Alright, so this is how much I will have at the end of 2 years if it is a simple interest. Okay, now let's come to Tarun's investment. It's the same amount, principal 25, 6.5% for 2 years. The difference here is it is compounded monthly, right? So how many times is it being compounded in 1 year? 12 times, because it's monthly, right? After each and every month it is being compounded. So how do we calculate? Same formula we will use, just it is the the numbers that would change. 25,000 into 1 plus 0.65, okay, or 6.5% divided by the n. N is how much here? N is 12 to the power of 24. That is because of 12 into 2, 2 being my tenure, which is 2 years. So my total amount will be 28,460 rupees. So at the end of 2 years with the same principal, same interest rate, while Tarun is earning around 28,250, Tarun will earn around 28,460. Okay, here interest will be how much? 28,460 minus 25,000 because 25,000 is my principal amount. right? So from my total amount that I have, I will reduce 25,000 and I will have the interest of 3,460 rupees. Okay, so here you can clearly see the difference in how simple interest works and compound interest works. I've taken smaller numbers here for understanding purpose, but if they are larger numbers, like, right, and the compounding will work even more. Now this is again a small time period, right? So you can also do make sure, you can just change these numbers and calculate, just change this to 10 years or 15 years, and you'll see a huge difference between the total amount and the interest that you will earn. For simple understanding, I've taken a smaller time period. Now that you've understood of how do we calculate this, just substitute random numbers and start calculating this, and you'll see a huge difference. This is about your Arun's investment and Tarun's investment. Now here you clearly see the difference between simple interest and your compound interest, right? Now in this question we might not see a significant difference between simple and compound interest. It is because of the time period, right? For simple understanding, I've taken a very small time period. With the same numbers, just increase the time period, right? Now that you know how to calculate this, I would suggest just change these numbers to a higher, more years, make this 15 years, or and then calculate. Then you will see the difference in simple interest and compound interest, and then you will understand of why we are, or why we discussed on the point that simple interest is suitable for short term investments and compound interest is for preferred for long term investments, right? So this was about your simple and compound interest. So this was all for your financial planning. In today's session, we've understood about simple and compound interest along with inflation and deflation. All right. So again, I would just want to mention that you might feel that, this is something that you might have studied, but there are topics that are interconnected, right? When we discussed about how inflation is controlled, or what are the measures that are taken to control the inflation, it is the same thing that we have discussed in the first session, part 3, that is supply of money, right? So the topics are interconnected, which is why I've kept on suggesting you that you make notes of all of the points so that you can quickly just go through all the points that you have noted down, right? So this was session 3 on financial planning. I'll see you in session 4. Thank you so much for joining.